You're watching this special broadcast right here on Times Now because we are going to decode an operation, the kind of grandstanding that President Trump has now done, especially when it comes to this rescue operation is concerned. Is it a rescue operation or a ruse? Because the official version seems to be very simple, almost like a Hollywood war thriller. A US fighter jet that goes down inside the enemy territory in Iran. One crew member is rescued very quickly, and the other one seems to be very grievously wounded and stranded in the hostile terrain. However, he still, after more than 30 hours, survives, and against all of the odds, until a massive daring operation brings him back home safely. Now, this is a story of grit. This is a story of precision and also, of course, the US military might. Exactly the kind of narrative that the Trump administration is now amplifying in the middle of the conflict. But scratch beneath the surface, there seems to be another story there who nobody seems to be actually pointing out or even, in a way talking about it. Because this is where the doubts lie. This is where there are certain questions. The scale, the geography, the sequence of events. However, if you think rightly, do not somewhere seem to align that the way it should or what is being projected to you. Was it now being presented as a historic combat search and rescue mission by the President of the United States of America is now being countered as Iran, saying that this is something far more complex and far less successful than seems to be vouching for. Iran has openly called this as America's uranium heist bid that seems to have gone wrong. And before we break down the details, let's listen in the latest reaction that has now come in from President Trump and also what Iran's foreign ministry representative has to say when it comes to these contradictory point of views.
A rescue that's very historic. It'll go down in the books. Late Thursday night, an American F-15 fighter jet went down deep inside enemy territory in Iran while participating in Operation Epic Fury, where we're doing unbelievably well, well at a level that nobody's ever seen before. The second rescue mission involved 155 aircraft, including 4 bombers, 64 fighters, 48 refueling tankers, 13 rescue aircraft, and more.
عرض کردم سوال ابهام در مورد این عملیات که به هر حال نقض حریم هوایی کشور بود خیلی زیاد وجود داره. منطقه‌ای که ادعا میشد خلبان آمریکایی حضور داره در کوهگیلویه و بوی رحمت تا منطقه‌ای که اینها اقدام به پیاده کردن نیرو کردند یا می‌خواستند بکنند فاصله زیادی داره در مرکز ایران. بنابراین این که احتمال دارد این یک عملیات فریب برای دزدیدن اورانیوم غنی شده بوده باشه به هیچ عنوان نباید.
Now the statements are coming in of the same incident. What happened in Iran and what President Trump says and what Iran's foreign ministry representative has to say. So we'll be getting you those people who are experts in this very field for a better understanding if there is a mismatch or no, and if there are facts that are needed to be aligned or be presented in a different manner altogether. So we have Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastava, sir. He's joining us here in the studios as well. Good afternoon to you, sir. And we have Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni as well joining us here in the studios. Good afternoon to you as well, sir. Let's in the meantime talk about, because you've heard the war of narratives that also has been taking place between America and Iran. And US President Donald Trump has now framed the operation as a necessary show of force to recover one man, one single wounded officer. But the scale that reaches, and as far as when it comes to the most immediate red flag is concerned, because that very operation and in a way that it has been carried out, because every minute was precious, is something that there are certain doubts being raised. Now, combat search and rescue operations are designed to be fast, to be precise, and to be limited in scope. They, however, rely on speed and coordination, not an overwhelming theater, that kind of level of deployment that has been seen. Why are we now talking about that? Because to rescue this one man, this American soldier, what did President Trump say? He said that not even a single soldier would be left behind, and this rescue mission is very, very risky, but he had to take this decision. Now, to rescue this one man, 155 aircraft package that is not usually built for a single extraction. It is built for sustained operations in contested airspace, fighters that establish air superiority. There are tankers that extend the operational reach and bombers that actually provide deterrence or even strike capability. Now what is being said there, you can see the level and the scope that seems to be involved in this daring rescue mission. All about rescuing one man. Why assemble such a force that seems to be designed to control an entire battle space? We're now looking at 155 aircrafts, 64 fighters, 4 bombers, 13 rescue aircrafts, and more than 2,000 personnel that seems, 200 personnel that seems to have been deployed. Well, let's get a better understanding. If we talk about, Lieutenant General Kulkarni, sir, to rescue one mission, one man, wounded man, a soldier. Now, this seems to be a narrative that what we are looking at, maybe multiple armies do follow, that not to leave your man behind. This is something that has been, as far as in Indian Army also is concerned, we do not leave a man behind. But to carry out such an extent of a rescue operation in such a short span of time, because this man would have turned into a prisoner of war, and that would have given Iran the kind of leverage that it was looking forward to. But however, that did not happen. Do you believe in this rescue operation, sir?
First and foremost, he's not one man. He stands for America. When he stands for America, the reputation and prestige of that country is dependent on this one colonel who happened to have gone down and who needed to be rescued. So it's a question of great determination that you rightly said, along with the military might. Had their operation failed, can you imagine the kind of flack that the President of America would have got, or the Americans would have suffered at a point of time when everybody thinks that the Americans have a military might but have not won as yet the Iranians. The Iranians are getting pounded like hell, and despite that, the morale of the Iranians is sky high. All of them stand under one flag, are ready to fight the Americans. And here, the Americans have to take out one single colonel, weapon officer who happened to have ejected, and that rescue mission was very, very important. Behind enemy lines, one. Number two, in a country which hates America. Can you imagine, where boots on ground is considered impossible? Here's an American might deep into it, as close as to Isfahan, where it is presumed that they had or they have their 400 kgs of uranium hidden, or wherever, whatever that may be. If that be so, and then the Americans succeed in extricating him from there, I think it's a huge success. It's something that the Americans can be proud of. Something that every professional soldier can be proud of. No, but is that the motive, or there is something behind it? I mean, Srivastava, sir, what is your understanding? Because there were 2 airmen who seems to have been, involved in this crash. They seem to be wounded. One of them was quietly extracted. The other one, you saw this daring heist that seems to have been taking place. Is there a certain mismatch?
See, Amita, there is a mismatch. I agree with everything what General said, because leaving behind a warrior is not the way air forces in the world or the armed forces in the world function. It's not the man behind left, it's also the prestige, power, and the nation's pride involved with it. So of course we'll do that kind of operation. We'll extract him. But will we involve so much of assets, where there is a probability of somebody else getting hit? Because if you amass numbers, I'll give you some things which do not gel with me. One is that we have said n number of times that there is hardly any air defense left. With the Iranians, there's hardly any kind of contested environment. You have more or less complete air superiority. You may be facing some kind of man-pads, man-portable air defense guns. So those kinds of things are only there for that. A-10 is good enough to strafe the whole area, to contain the whole area.
Yes, sir.
But what is more amazing, that the landing strip chosen for the staging was very close to Isfahan.
We're going to come to that.
I'll come to that. One more point. No. I'll connect with this.
Yes.
And that area is sandy. There is
a
possibility of aircraft getting stuck there. There are other things available.
I need to put that out for our viewers and explain to them through, map also. And we've actually done a lot of work on this. So let's put that out. Because what President Trump has been saying, that the pilot, grievously wounded, was located and the second crew member landed miles away. How is that even possible? Then he is attributed to the complexity of the separation of the two airmen. But the geography is something, as what Srivastava sir is also saying, does not seem to cooperate with this very explanation. Let's explain this graphically, that the down crew are now said to have been in an area which is called the Kogliu and Boyer Ahmad. This is a province which is located in southwestern part of Iran. Let's put that out in focus. This seems to be the crash site, which is the F-15 Eagle crash site, in which 2 airmen were involved. However, when it comes to the location where they fell, or when the jet crashed, it seems to be the very difference in their locations in something where the region is now said to be southwestern part of Iran. Yet the bulk of the operational activity that seems to be included the reported landing attempts and the aircraft movements and the presence of the destroyed assets point towards Isfahan. Let's take you about when it comes to the other location is concerned, and that is central Iran. Look at the kind of timeline and the kind of distance, because this is not a small discrepancy. The distance between these regions that spans hundreds of kilometers across a very difficult terrain. And in any standard rescue doctrine, forces that converge on the survivor, they do not establish heavy operations in a completely different location. So if the objective in the first place was recovery, then why does the operational footprint center itself around Isfahan? There you can see. And why we are putting up that site? Because it's a nuclear facility there. So what is that interest that US has as far as when it comes to Isfahan is concerned? Well, Kulkarni sir, is this a mere coincidence?
See, let's give the worst case scenario that the entire operation was for Isfahan. Let's say. And that's where this accident occurred. And that's where the pilot had to eject. The number of bullets fired on these aircrafts and the helicopters, the number of 2 of the aircrafts couldn't take off because they were all stuck in the sand because there are no runways over there. The fact that the pilot, obviously the second, this weapon officer, when he ejects, there will be a time lag between the first. The aircraft also at a certain speed which is taking off. The pilot is ejected. The second one ejects, he'll go some distance away. Can you imagine a person who is off communication for about 24 hours, he is trying to first gather his chute. After having got his parachute intact, then he walks. Ejection is not an easy thing. I've seen an ejection myself, how these pilots get out. It's very difficult, extremely difficult at that point of time. Then he himself has to recover. He has to walk up. He's going to a particular location, catching a height to be able to see. He's got a beacon on him. There's a military satellite which got him. He's not wanting
encrypted data, no voice. I mean, cannot be any signals that he can be sending. Enemy and territory, difficult terrain, hiding in a crevice, helped by locals. Does it match, sir?
Amita,
yes.
See, we must understand there are 2 parts to the whole story. One part is extraction of the pilot and his own ability to what we call survival, evade, resistance and escape.
But grievously wounded pilot, sir, is he able to actually crawl all the way to up a
the
mountain
pilot
for
has
2
done
kilometers?
the pilot has done a great job.
Yes.
Because not only he did that, he also kept on climbing. He went to a place from where his communication became very secure and his beacon was really transmitting and people were getting it. So this part of technology, absolutely fine, it went on as it should go on, like it happened in the case of the first pilot who ejected and was extracted without any much this kind of show and drama. Coming to the fact that this guy acted very well, this colonel acted very well, and he should have acted the same way. But Amita, the contrasting thing is, when I do this kind of extraction, their 160th SOAR was involved, that is Special Operations Aviation Regiment was involved in this, and they do it all the time. It's not that something which new being done, but the kind of assets which have moved in, and they could have moved in a better place. Where the surface is harder.
Questions actually arise.
So this
even
is
when it comes
why
to the
you
rescue.
go near Isfahan.
That was also hit.
Another thing, Amita, let me complete
it. Yes,
the Isfahan, by nature of its asset being there, Iranian assets being there, whatever they have, they'll focus on Isfahan. All
but
the
why,
ground
sir?
forces
Because
you're
this
going
is
to
something
experience over
President
there.
Trump said that they have obliterated when it comes to the nuclear facilities.
But they can't obliterate all whole of the
But that
IRGC.
happened back in June last year, sir. What is the main and ambition and motive now,
I will not land in
sir.
Isfahan and take my staging post over there when I have another option which is safer.
That only raises the questions of a ruse, sir, or a deception, because we'll play out exactly what President Trump has been saying. Because he seems to have constructed a very powerful narrative of survival, a hero's tale. And he now says, hailing the aviator as a brave warrior. And before we decode that survival story, let's tell you exactly what President Trump has said about America's brave warrior.
The second crew member, a weapons system officer, highly respected colonel, had landed a significant distance away from the pilot. When you're going at those speeds, even if you go out 2 or 3 seconds later, it's miles and miles away. He was injured quite badly and stranded in an area teeming with terrorists from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps rough group.
Well, that is what President Trump seems to be projecting. In fact, nothing short of a Hollywood thriller. Maybe in the coming days it may be turned into a movie, but what has happened in reality is also, in a way, a hero's tale of what he's been projected, especially when it comes to a grievously wounded soldier. How after he did survive when it comes to several hours, and that too in the enemy territory, and that too in a very, very difficult terrain, and away from his colleague who was also injured but was rescued first. This airman, a decorated colonel, was left all by himself. Let's, in the meantime, as far as when it comes to these